Welcome to Dreamtime History, where we explore fascinating historical topics in a calm, relaxing format designed to help you unwind and drift off to sleep. Tonight, we'll be journeying through the surprisingly burdensome life of Egypt's most powerful rulers, discovering the hidden challenges, political pressures, and personal sacrifices that came with absolute power. If these boring history narratives are helping you sleep, please leave a like and subscribe. Your support helps us create more content for your peaceful nights. Now make yourself comfortable as we begin our historical journey into the surprisingly difficult world of ancient Egyptian pharaohs. Picture yourself living thousands of years ago, waking before dawn to the sound of chanting priests, being pulled from your bed by dozens of servants, knowing that every single action you take today will be scrutinized by gods, priests, nobles, and millions of subjects. This was daily life for Egypt's pharaohs, the supposedly divine rulers who carried the crushing weight of an entire civilization on their shoulders. From the moment they opened their eyes to the elaborate bedtime rituals that occupied their nights, pharaohs lived in a golden cage of religious obligations, political maneuvering, and constant danger. While history books often portray them as all-powerful god-kings living in luxury, the reality was far more complex and genuinely exhausting than most people imagine. The morning routine of a pharaoh began hours before sunrise. Royal servants would enter the bedchamber and wake their divine ruler with elaborate hymns and incense. The pharaoh couldn't simply roll out of bed and grab breakfast. First came the purification rituals, sacred baths with waters infused with myrrh and frankincense, followed by the application of sacred oils by specialized priests. Each movement, each garment, each piece of jewelry had religious significance that required precise execution. By the time the sun rose, the pharaoh was already dressed in layers of linen, adorned with the ceremonial false beard, and wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. The weight alone was considerable. The crown, jewelry, and ceremonial garments could exceed 40 pounds. Imagine starting your day by putting on a heavy backpack filled with gold and precious stones, knowing you'd wear it for the next 16 hours. Breakfast wasn't a casual affair. The pharaoh ate alone, as befitted their divine status, but every bite was watched by food tasters, priests, and palace officials. The menu was strictly controlled according to religious dietary laws and seasonal requirements. Fresh bread, honey, figs, dates, and specially prepared meats formed the typical meal. But even these simple foods came with complications. Each dish required specific prayers and rituals before consumption. After breakfast came the first of many daily audiences. Nobles, governors, priests, and foreign dignitaries would line up to present their cases, complaints, and tributes. The pharaoh had to maintain perfect composure and divine wisdom while listening to endless disputes about grain allocations, territorial boundaries, and temple funding. One moment they might be deciding the fate of a province suffering from drought, the next determining punishment for a corrupt official. Every decision carried enormous weight and would be analysed for years to come. The physical toll of these audiences was substantial. Pharaohs sat on uncomfortable thrones designed for majesty rather than comfort, often for hours without break. They couldn't show fatigue, irritation, or even basic human reactions like yawning or scratching an itch. The false beard alone caused constant irritation, but removing it during official functions would be unthinkable. Between audiences came the endless ceremonies. Egyptian religion demanded pharaohs perform specific rituals throughout the day. Morning offerings to the gods, midday sun worship, afternoon temple visits, and evening ceremonies filled their schedule. Each ritual required precise movements, exact words, and perfect timing. A single mistake could be interpreted as divine disfavor, potentially undermining the pharaoh's legitimacy. Palace intrigue added another layer of exhaustion to royal life. Pharaohs lived surrounded by family members, advisors, and courtiers who constantly plotted for advantage. Brothers killed brothers for throne rights. Wives poisoned co-wives in harem rivalries. High-ranking officials accumulated power and wealth, sometimes challenging royal authority directly. The pharaoh had to navigate these dangerous waters daily, knowing that showing weakness or favoritism could lead to coup attempts. The harem itself presented unique challenges. While having multiple wives might sound appealing, it actually created enormous political complexity. Each queen came from different regions or allied kingdoms, bringing their own agendas and expectations. Managing these relationships required diplomatic skills that would challenge modern politicians. Pharaohs spent considerable time mediating between jealous wives, ambitious mothers-in-law, and competing factions within the palace. Royal marriages were rarely about love. Most unions served political purposes, allying with neighbouring kingdoms, securing trade routes, or pacifying rebellious provinces. Pharaohs often married their sisters or daughters to maintain royal bloodlines, creating family dynamics that would make holiday dinners incredibly awkward by modern standards. These marriages produced dozens of children, each representing both legacy and potential threat. The financial pressures of ruling Egypt would make modern CEOs blanch. Pharaohs oversaw massive construction projects, pyramids, temples, palaces that consumed enormous resources. These weren't optional vanity projects, but religious necessities believed essential for maintaining cosmic order. A pharaoh who failed to build adequately risked divine punishment and popular uprising. Managing Egypt's complex economy required understanding agriculture, trade, warfare, and administration. The annual Nile flood determined the nation's prosperity, forcing pharaohs to make crucial decisions about grain storage, workforce allocation, and tax collection. Poor decisions could lead to famine, while excessive taxation might trigger rebellions. Finding the balance required skill that many pharaohs lacked, despite their supposed divine wisdom. Military leadership added another burden. Pharaohs were expected to lead armies personally, regardless of their martial abilities. Some, like Ramesses II, genuinely enjoyed warfare and campaigned extensively. Others preferred administrative duties, but still had to maintain the warrior king image essential to royal prestige. Military campaigns meant months away from palace comforts, living in tents, eating field rations, and facing real danger. The psychological toll of absolute power often proved the heaviest burden. Pharaohs lived isolated from genuine human interaction. Everyone they encountered had ulterior motives, seeking favours, avoiding punishment, or advancing political agendas. True friendship was impossible when your companions might be executed for disrespect or conspiring against you. Many pharaohs developed paranoia, depression, or eccentricities that further complicated governance. Royal children faced particularly difficult circumstances. Born into privilege but raised for duty, they received intensive education in languages, mathematics, history, military tactics, and religious practices. their entire childhood prepared them for the throne, with little consideration for personal desires or talents. Younger sons often plotted against their elder brothers, knowing that royal survival frequently required eliminating competition. Death itself brought no relief. Egyptian religious beliefs demanded pharaohs achieve perfect mummification and proper burial to ensure afterlife success. This meant their final days were spent directing elaborate funeral preparations while still managing kingdom affairs. The mummification process itself was gruesome. Organs removed, body dried with natron salts, wrapped in hundreds of yards of linen. Even in death, pharaohs couldn't escape royal obligations. Palace life revolved around endless etiquette and protocol. Every gesture, word and movement followed strict rules developed over millennia. Pharaohs couldn't simply walk through corridors. They processed with specific entourages at predetermined speeds. Meals required elaborate serving rituals. Even private moments like bathing or using the bathroom involved multiple attendants and ceremonial procedures. The divine status that elevated pharaohs above mortals simultaneously imprisoned them within rigid behavioral constraints. They couldn't express anger openly, show favoritism, or indulge personal preferences without political consequences. Their marriages, friendships, hobbies, and daily routines became matters of state policy rather than personal choice. Royal advisors added another complication. While pharaohs supposedly held absolute power, reality required delegation to viziers, generals, high priests, and provincial governors. These officials often accumulated influence that challenged royal authority. Skillful pharaohs balanced competing interests while maintaining control. Less capable rulers became puppets of powerful advisors who ruled in their names. Religious obligations consumed enormous portions of royal time. Pharaohs performed daily rituals in major temples, participated in seasonal festivals, and conducted special ceremonies for significant events. These weren't brief appearances, but lengthy affairs requiring full participation. The pharaoh had to know hundreds of prayers, hymns, and ritual movements. Priests watched constantly for mistakes that might indicate divine disfavor. Temple construction demanded personal involvement beyond mere approval. Pharaohs supervised design, blessed construction, and performed dedication rituals. Major projects like pyramid building required decade-long commitment. The pharaoh visited construction sites regularly, ensuring workers maintained proper standards while managing logistical challenges that would overwhelm modern project managers. International diplomacy added yet another layer of complexity. Egypt's wealth and power attracted constant attention from neighbouring kingdoms, nomadic tribes, and distant empires. Pharaohs exchanged letters with foreign rulers, negotiated treaties, arranged royal marriages, and managed tribute payments. These relationships required understanding multiple languages, cultures, and political systems while maintaining Egyptian superiority. Legal administration consumed significant royal energy. As supreme judge, pharaohs heard important cases and established legal precedents. Egyptian law covered everything from property disputes to capital crimes. Verdicts required careful consideration of religious law, traditional customs, and political implications. Wrong decisions could destabilize communities or weaken royal authority. Provincial governance demanded constant attention. Egypt's vast territory included deserts, fertile valleys, and coastal regions with distinct populations and challenges. Pharaohs appointed governors, but had to monitor their performance carefully. Corrupt or incompetent officials could lose provinces to rebellion or invasion. Regular inspections, detailed reports, and surprise visits helped maintain control, but required enormous effort. The royal court itself resembled a small city with thousands of inhabitants. Servants, guards, officials, priests, artisans, and entertainers all required management. Palace politics rivaled international diplomacy in complexity. Pharaohs navigated competing factions, managed resources, maintained discipline, and ensured loyalty among this diverse population. Succession planning created particular stress. Pharaohs had to identify suitable heirs, provide appropriate training, and manage potential rivals. Many chose co-regents during their lifetimes, sharing power with designated successors. This arrangement could stabilize transitions but also created opportunities for conflict. Some pharaohs ruled jointly with multiple successors, leading to complicated power-sharing arrangements. Royal burial preparations began early in most reigns. Pharaohs supervised tomb construction, selected burial goods, and ensured proper religious provisions for their afterlife journey. These projects consumed enormous resources and required coordination between architects, artisans, priests, and labourers. A pharaoh's tomb represented their most permanent monument, but also declared their eventual mortality. Palace security presented constant challenges. Pharaohs faced assassination attempts from family members, nobles, foreign agents, and religious fanatics. Personal guards required absolute loyalty, but could themselves become threats. Food tasters protected against poisoning, but couldn't prevent all dangers. Living under constant threat of violent death added psychological pressure to already stressful royal duties. Physical health suffered under the demands of royal life. Heavy crown wearing caused neck problems. Elaborate makeup and cosmetics irritated skin. Rich diet and limited exercise led to obesity in many pharaohs. The stress of absolute power contributed to various ailments. Royal physicians provided treatments, but couldn't address the fundamental health impacts of their patients' lifestyle. Mental health challenges were equally significant. Many pharaohs exhibited signs of anxiety, depression, or paranoia. Some developed obsessive behaviours or personality disorders under royal pressure. Akhenaten's religious revolution might have stemmed from psychological instability rather than theological conviction. Royal isolation prevented normal social support networks that help people cope with stress. Daily decision fatigue affected even the most capable pharaohs. Every choice, from breakfast selection to military strategy, required conscious deliberation. Modern research shows decision-making quality deteriorates throughout the day, but pharaohs couldn't delegate or delay important choices. This mental exhaustion compounded other challenges of royal life. Economic management demanded sophisticated understanding despite limited education systems. Pharaohs had to grasp agricultural cycles, trade networks, monetary systems, and resource allocation without formal economic training. Mistakes could devastate the kingdom's prosperity. Success required intuition, advice, and often luck, rather than systematic analysis available to modern leaders. Cultural production became royal responsibility. Pharaohs commissioned art, literature, music, and architecture that defined Egyptian civilization. They had to understand aesthetic principles, religious symbolism, and technical requirements while maintaining standards that satisfied both gods and subjects. Artistic patronage consumed considerable time and resources, but remained essential for royal legitimacy. Foreign trade required personal oversight, despite communication limitations. Pharaohs approved expeditions, negotiated trade agreements, and resolved commercial disputes. Egyptian merchants travelled throughout the Mediterranean and Africa, but coordination took months. Decisions made in Memphis affected communities thousands of miles away, often with delayed consequences that required subsequent adjustments. Royal education never ended. Pharaohs studied constantly. Religion, law, history, languages, mathematics, astronomy, and military science. Palace libraries contained thousands of papyrus scrolls that rulers were expected to understand. Priests, scribes, and scholars presented new information regularly. Maintaining intellectual currency required significant daily study time, despite numerous other obligations. Ceremonial duties extended beyond religious rituals. Pharaohs opened buildings, blessed harvests, welcomed foreign dignitaries, and participated in cultural celebrations. Each appearance required preparation, appropriate attire, and perfect performance. Public mistakes could damage royal prestige irreparably. Some ceremonies lasted days, demanding stamina and concentration that challenged even healthy pharaohs. Personal relationships suffered under royal demands. Pharaohs struggled to maintain genuine friendships when everyone sought political advantage. Marriages served state purposes rather than personal happiness. Children were raised primarily for succession rather than family bonds. Many pharaohs died surrounded by courtiers, but emotionally isolated from meaningful human connection. Technical administration required understanding complex systems despite limited administrative tools. Pharaohs managed irrigation networks, granary storage, workforce organization, and resource distribution using primitive communication methods. Scribes recorded information on papyrus, but data analysis remained rudimentary. Modern spreadsheets would have revolutionized Egyptian governance, but pharaohs made crucial decisions based on incomplete information. Military logistics presented enormous challenges. Pharaohs coordinated armies of thousands across vast distances. Supplying troops required mathematical precision and strategic planning. Campaigns affected agricultural production, trade routes, and provincial stability. Successful military leadership demanded skills far beyond personal courage or tactical knowledge. Religious politics complicated secular governance. Egypt's powerful priesthood controlled significant wealth and influenced public opinion. Pharaohs balanced competing temple interests while maintaining royal supremacy. Some rulers, like Akhenaten, challenged priestly authority directly, creating civil conflict that weakened their reigns. Most chose careful compromise that satisfied neither reformist nor conservative factions. Legal codification required philosophical sophistication beyond most pharaohs' training. Egyptian law evolved through precedent and royal decree rather than systematic jurisprudence. Pharaohs established principles affecting generations without formal legal education. Their judgments shaped society's fundamental structures while dealing with immediate political pressures that might conflict with long-term justice. Royal residences required constant management. Pharaohs maintained multiple palaces across Egypt, each staffed and supplied year-round, despite irregular occupancy. Moving the court involved massive logistical operations. Palace economies supported thousands directly while affecting regional development. Neglected residences symbolized weak rule, forcing pharaohs to visit regularly regardless of preference. Entertainment industry oversight fell within royal purview. Pharaohs sponsored musicians, dancers, acrobats, and storytellers who performed at court functions. They judged artistic merit, while ensuring entertainment remained appropriate for divine authority. Some pharaohs genuinely enjoyed cultural performances, others endured them as necessary duties. Cultural patronage influenced artistic development throughout Egyptian history. Scientific patronage represented another royal obligation. Pharaohs supported astronomers, physicians, engineers, and mathematicians whose work advanced Egyptian civilization. They had to understand complex technical concepts well enough to make informed funding decisions. Some rulers showed genuine scientific curiosity, others merely fulfilled expected duties. Scientific advancement often depended on individual pharaohs' personal interests and capabilities. Architectural legacy weighed heavily on royal minds. Each pharaoh needed impressive monuments, proving their divine favour and ensuring afterlife success. Construction projects dominated their reigns, absorbing enormous resources and requiring technical expertise. Pharaohs without major monuments faced historical obscurity, motivating ambitious building programs despite economic limitations. International matrimony created complex household dynamics. Royal wives from different kingdoms brought foreign customs, languages, and political agendas. Pharaohs navigated cultural differences while maintaining Egyptian supremacy. Children from international marriages inherited mixed loyalties that complicated succession. Diplomatic marriage benefits often came with domestic political costs that persisted through generations. Record-keeping demands exceeded modern administrative challenges. Pharaohs supervised vast bureaucracies without computers, telephones, or printing presses. Scribes hand-copied essential documents multiple times for distribution. Information flowed slowly between distant provinces. Royal decisions required repetition through multiple channels to ensure implementation. Administrative inefficiency frustrated even capable pharaohs, but couldn't be easily improved given technological limitations. Judicial appeals consumed significant royal attention. Citizens could petition pharaohs directly for justice when local officials failed them. These appeals covered everything from property disputes to capital punishment reviews. Pharaohs heard cases personally or delegated to trusted advisors, always aware that justice reputation affected political stability. Wrong decisions could trigger local unrest or broader challenges to royal authority. Divine embodiment pressures affected pharaohs psychologically. Religious doctrine declared them living gods, but they experienced human limitations, emotions, and mortality. Maintaining divine facade while coping with personal struggles created cognitive dissonance. Some pharaohs embraced their godhood fully, others struggled with the contradiction between divinity claims and human reality. Resource allocation required detailed economic knowledge despite limited data collection methods. Pharaohs balanced competing demands from military, religious, agricultural, and construction sectors. They had to predict harvest yields, assess trade benefits, and evaluate project priorities without modern, analytical tools. Economic miscalculations could weaken royal power through military failures, religious dissatisfaction, or popular unrest. Border security demanded constant vigilance across thousands of miles of frontiers. Pharaohs coordinated fortress garrisons, border patrols, and intelligence networks. Desert raids, foreign invasions, and internal rebellions threatened constantly. Military preparation consumed enormous resources, while soldiers could double as construction workers during peaceful periods. Balancing defense with development challenged even experienced pharaohs. Royal succession remained contentious throughout Egyptian history. Primogeniture wasn't strictly observed, creating opportunities for capable but junior sons. Military commanders sometimes seized power through force. Queens occasionally ruled independently, challenging traditional succession patterns. Pharaohs spent considerable effort securing their chosen successors while managing disappointed rivals who might attempt coups. Personal privacy ceased existing upon ascending the throne. Pharaohs lived under constant observation by servants, guards, priests, and officials. Their every action carried political significance. Private moments required elaborate arrangements that still didn't guarantee actual solitude. Many pharaohs developed public personas distinctly different from their private selves, adding psychological strain to already difficult royal lives. Communication challenges complicated governance across Egypt's vast territory. Messages travelled by boat, foot, or horseback, taking weeks to reach distant provinces. Pharaohs made decisions affecting thousands without knowing current local conditions. Provincial governors required significant autonomy, creating opportunities for corruption or independence movements. Central control demanded extensive information networks that remained inherently unreliable. Cultural preservation became royal responsibility. Pharaohs maintained traditional customs while adapting to changing circumstances. Foreign influences entered Egypt through trade and conquest, requiring careful integration. Religious innovations needed balancing against conservative traditions. Cultural decisions affected Egyptian identity for generations, making pharaohs indirect shapers of civilization itself. Diplomatic correspondence required multilingual abilities beyond most pharaohs' education. Egypt's international relationships demanded communication in various languages through interpreters or scribes. Nuances lost in translation could cause serious misunderstandings. Pharaohs relied heavily on advisors for foreign affairs, but remained ultimately responsible for diplomatic successes or failures. Language barriers complicated already complex international relations. Royal health management challenged court physicians. Pharaohs suffered various ailments from their demanding lifestyle: obesity, dental problems, parasitic infections, and stress-related conditions. Medical treatments relied on herbal remedies, prayer, and limited surgical procedures. Royal deaths often resulted from treatable conditions that exceeded contemporary medical capabilities. Maintaining royal health became crucial political necessity, affecting succession stability. Financial oversight required understanding complex taxation systems distributed across numerous provinces. Pharaohs balanced agricultural taxes, trade revenues, tribute payments, and temple donations. They had to assess economic capacity without over-exploiting subjects who might rebel. Tax collection methods evolved throughout Egyptian history, requiring pharaohs to adapt administrative systems while maintaining revenue necessary for kingdom operation. As time passed and we move into the period where financial oversight required understanding complex taxation systems distributed across numerous provinces, Pharaohs balanced agricultural taxes, trade revenues, tribute payments, and temple donations. They had to assess economic capacity without over-exploiting subjects who might rebel. Tax collection methods evolved throughout Egyptian history, requiring pharaohs to adapt administrative systems while maintaining revenue necessary for kingdom operation. Regional administration presented unique challenges across Egypt's diverse geography. Upper and Lower Egypt maintained distinct identities, requiring separate governance approaches. Delta regions needed different agricultural policies than southern provinces. Pharaohs appointed trusted relatives or loyal nobles as governors, but had to monitor their performance constantly. Provincial autonomy versus centralized control remained a delicate balance throughout different dynasties. Royal workshops demanded direct supervision for producing items necessary for religious ceremonies and state occasions. Specialized craftsmen created everything from jewelry and furniture to weapons and ceremonial objects. Quality control fell under royal purview, since substandard workmanship could offend gods or diminish pharaonic prestige. Managing these diverse industrial operations required technical knowledge beyond most pharaohs' experience. Water management systems required engineering expertise that few pharaohs possessed. The annual Nile flood determined agricultural success, but its timing and intensity varied unpredictably. Pharaohs oversaw massive irrigation projects, canal maintenance, and flood prediction methods. These hydraulic systems supported millions, but demanded constant repair and adjustment. Poor water management could devastate regions, making this royal responsibility particularly burdensome. Court ceremonial evolved increasingly complex over centuries, adding new requirements to already overwhelming royal duties. Pharaohs performed elaborated rituals for state occasions, religious festivals, and diplomatic receptions. Each ceremony required specific costumes, gestures, and utterances that couldn't be modified without religious consequences. Mistakes during public ceremonies could be interpreted as divine displeasure, weakening royal authority significantly. Military technology advancement demanded pharaoh attention despite their varying martial interests. Egyptian armies required constant modernization to compete with neighboring powers. Pharaohs approved weapon designs, chariot specifications, and fortress construction, while coordinating with generals and engineers. Some rulers genuinely understood military innovation. Others delegated these decisions while maintaining warrior king appearances necessary for royal legitimacy. Artistic patronage extended beyond mere decoration into political symbolism. Pharaohs commissioned statues, reliefs, and monuments that communicated royal power across generations. They approved designs, supervised construction, and ensured artistic outputs reinforced royal ideology. Artistic decisions affected how subjects perceived pharaonic authority and influenced cultural identity throughout Egypt. Royal medical care involved more than treating illnesses. It included maintaining the pharaoh's divine image despite physical infirmities. Court physicians practiced medicine while preserving royal mystique. Pharaohs couldn't appear weak or mortal, forcing medical treatments to occur secretly. Some rulers suffered chronic conditions that significantly impacted governance, but couldn't be publicly acknowledged without damaging royal prestige. Public appearances required carefully choreographed performances that balanced accessibility with divine authority. Pharaohs needed to be visible enough to maintain subject loyalty, but distant enough to preserve mystique. Festival participation, temple visits, and formal audiences followed strict protocols developed over centuries. Even spontaneous public interactions required preparation and security arrangements that limited genuine human connection. Economic advisors provided guidance on complex financial matters, but pharaohs ultimately bore responsibility for all monetary decisions. Understanding currency values, trade ratios, and resource allocation challenged rulers without formal economic education. Poor financial choices could bankrupt provinces, weaken military capabilities, or reduce temple support. Economic literacy became essential for successful pharaonic rule, despite inadequate training systems. Religious education continued throughout pharaonic careers as theological concepts evolved and new deities gained prominence. Pharaohs studied religious texts, participated in priestly consultations, and adapted ritual practices when necessary. They balanced traditional religious observance with practical governance needs, sometimes creating tension between conservative priests and administrative requirements. Religious knowledge remained crucial for maintaining divine mandate, essential to royal power. International intelligence gathering required extensive spy networks that pharaohs supervised personally. Information about neighbouring kingdoms, potential threats, and trade opportunities helped inform foreign policy decisions. Pharaohs received reports from merchants, diplomats, and secret agents operating throughout the known world. Processing this information required analytical skills that determined Egypt's international standing and security. Legal precedent establishment shaped Egyptian society for generations as pharaohs created laws affecting property rights, criminal justice, and commercial regulations. These decisions required balancing traditional customs with evolving social needs. Pharaohs without legal training made judgments that influenced countless lives while considering religious requirements, political implications, and practical enforcement challenges. Palace maintenance involved managing vast estates requiring constant upkeep, staffing, and provisioning. Pharaohs owned multiple residences throughout Egypt, each demanding attention and resources. Building repairs, garden maintenance, security upgrades, and staff supervision consumed significant administrative energy. Neglected palaces symbolized royal weakness, forcing pharaohs to maintain properties they rarely visited. Royal burial customs demanded extensive preparation, beginning early in each reign. Pharaohs supervised tomb construction, selected burial goods, planned mummification procedures, and coordinated funeral arrangements. These preparations represented massive resource expenditure, justified by religious beliefs about afterlife requirements. Tomb robbery attempts required security measures, extending decades beyond royal death. Cultural festivals required royal participation throughout the year, punctuating regular governance duties with elaborate celebrations. Pharaohs performed essential roles in agricultural celebrations, religious observances, and commemorative events. These festivals reinforced social cohesion, but demanded extensive preparation and physical stamina. Some celebrations lasted weeks, requiring sustained royal presence despite other pressing responsibilities. Diplomatic gift exchange created significant economic burdens as pharaohs maintained relationships through lavish presents. Foreign kingdoms expected generous offerings proportional to Egypt's wealth and status. These diplomatic expenses consumed resources that could fund internal development, but remained necessary for international stability. Pharaohs balanced gift-giving against domestic needs, while avoiding impression of weakness through insufficient generosity. Military expedition planning required coordinating multiple army divisions across vast distances. Pharaohs approved campaign strategies, supply routes, and logistical arrangements supporting thousands of soldiers. Successful military operations demanded detailed planning months in advance, while remaining flexible enough to adapt to changing circumstances. Campaign failures reflected directly on royal competence, regardless of actual pharaonic involvement in tactical decisions. Royal marriage negotiations involved complex political calculations affecting international alliances and internal stability. Pharaohs arranged marriages for themselves, their children, and relatives to secure diplomatic advantages or domestic support. These arrangements considered religious requirements, cultural compatibility, and succession implications extending decades into the future. Marriage politics required balancing competing interests while maintaining royal prestige. Temple administration required pharaohs to oversee religious institutions, controlling significant wealth and influencing public opinion. Priests managed temple lands, collected offerings, and organized festivals under royal supervision. Pharaohs appointed high priests, approved major religious decisions, and resolved disputes between competing temples. Religious politics often proved more challenging than secular governance due to theological complexities and priestly ambitions. Scientific advancement received royal attention as pharaohs supported astronomical observations, mathematical development, and medical research. These intellectual pursuits required understanding complex theories despite limited educational opportunities. Some pharaohs showed genuine scientific curiosity, others fulfilled traditional patronage obligations. Scientific progress often correlated with individual royal interests rather than systematic support systems. Border fortress maintenance demanded continuous attention across Egypt's extensive frontiers. Pharaohs supervised garrison staffing, supply provisions, and defensive preparations at numerous strategic locations. These military installations protected trade routes, prevented invasions, and projected royal power into neighbouring territories. Fortress management required balancing military readiness against resource limitations affecting domestic development. Royal education systems needed development and oversight as pharaohs recognized that administrative complexity required literate, skilled officials. They established schools, approved curricula, and promoted educated individuals to government positions. Educational investment represented long-term thinking beyond immediate royal benefit, but proved essential for sustaining bureaucratic efficiency across generations. Succession disputes threatened stability whenever pharaohs died without clear heirs. Multiple wives producing numerous sons created potential conflicts, requiring careful management during royal lifetimes. Pharaohs designated successors early, but had to ensure other claimants remained loyal without legitimate grievances. Succession planning consumed significant political energy while creating lasting dynastic consequences. Economic crisis management tested pharaonic leadership during natural disasters, trade disruptions, or military losses. Famine years demanded grain redistribution, reduced taxation, and public work programs maintaining social order. Pharaohs mobilized resources quickly while maintaining authority despite obvious limitations on royal power over natural phenomena. Crisis response often determined how history remembered individual pharaohs. Artistic innovation required pharaohs to balance traditional styles with evolving aesthetic preferences reflecting changing times. Royal patronage influenced artistic development throughout Egyptian culture, as pharaohs commissioned work setting standards for centuries. They approved new techniques, promoted talented artists, and ensured artistic output reinforced political messages supporting royal authority. Military legacy building motivated pharaohs to achieve notable conquests, ensuring historical remembrance. Successful campaigns required personal leadership, despite physical risks challenging royal safety. Some pharaohs genuinely enjoyed warfare, others understood military reputation remained essential for dynastic prestige. Balancing military ambition against kingdom stability challenged pharaohs throughout Egyptian history. Administrative reform implementation responded to bureaucratic inefficiency that accumulated over decades. Pharaohs periodically reorganized government structures, updated legal codes, and reformed taxation systems, improving governance effectiveness. These changes faced resistance from entrenched interests benefiting from existing arrangements. Reform success depended on pharaonic political skill and willingness to confront opposition. Royal health declined inevitably as pharaohs aged while maintaining demanding schedules requiring physical endurance and mental acuity. Court physicians treated various ailments, but couldn't reverse aging effects on royal performance. Pharaohs adapted governance methods, accommodating physical limitations, while preserving divine authority images essential for political stability. International reputation management required pharaohs to consider how foreign kingdoms perceived Egyptian power and royal competence. Diplomatic correspondence, military actions, and cultural exchanges contributed to international standing, affecting trade relationships and military deterrence. Pharaohs balanced domestic priorities against international expectations while maintaining Egypt's regional dominance. Cultural preservation efforts ensured Egyptian traditions survived despite foreign influences and internal changes. Pharaohs promoted traditional art forms, supported religious conservatism, and maintained historical continuity, linking their reigns to ancestral precedents. Cultural stewardship represented royal duty beyond immediate political concerns, influencing civilization development across millennia. Royal retirement remained impossible as pharaonic duties continued until death regardless of age-related decline. Some pharaohs appointed co-regents sharing responsibilities, but divine status couldn't be relinquished voluntarily. Aging pharaohs struggled maintaining ceremonial appearances while delegating practical governance to younger relatives or trusted advisors. Death often provided the only escape from relentless royal obligations. Economic development required pharaohs to identify new revenue sources, supporting expanding state functions. They promoted trade expeditions, developed natural resources, and encouraged technological innovation, increasing productivity. Economic growth created opportunities, but also demanded careful management, preventing inflation or resource depletion that could destabilize the kingdom. Religious philosophy evolution challenged pharaohs, adapting traditional beliefs to contemporary understanding while maintaining theological orthodoxy. Some rulers introduced religious innovations, scandalizing conservative priests. Others preserved ancient practices despite changing social contexts. Theological leadership required balancing religious authority with practical adaptability, ensuring continued popular support. Military training standards required royal attention as warfare technology advanced, demanding higher soldier skill levels. Pharaohs approved training methods, evaluated military effectiveness, and ensured armies remained competitive internationally. Professional military development consumed resources but proved essential for national security in an era of constant conflict. Palace intrigue intensified during royal illness or advanced age as various factions positioned themselves for succession advantages. Pharaohs navigated competing ambitions while maintaining order within increasingly complex court politics. Trust became precious commodity as health deteriorated and royal authority gradually weakened, approaching inevitable transition. Cultural influence extended beyond Egypt's borders as other civilizations adopted Egyptian practices, artistic styles, and religious concepts. Pharaohs managed this cultural export, promoting Egyptian prestige while preventing excessive foreign influence within their own kingdom. Cultural diplomacy represented sophisticated foreign policy tool requiring nuanced understanding of international relationships. Royal responsibilities accumulated across decades, wearing down even robust individuals under constant pressure, performing duties essential for maintaining cosmic order. Pharaohs rarely experienced relief from obligations that defined their existence from childhood through death. Divine status provided unparalleled power, but extracted enormous personal costs rarely considered in historical narratives emphasizing royal grandeur. Historical legacy concerns motivated pharaohs, considering how future generations would evaluate their reigns. Monumental construction, military conquests, and administrative reforms represented attempts at immortality beyond physical death. Legacy building consumed resources that might improve contemporary conditions but seemed essential for royal satisfaction. Final years brought increasing isolation as illness limited royal mobility, while ceremonial obligations continued requiring exhausting effort. Pharaohs prepared for death, while managing living responsibilities, creating psychological burden combining grief, fear, and duty. Divine promises of afterlife glory provided comfort, but couldn't eliminate human mortality's fundamental challenge. As time passed and we move into the period where temple responsibilities expanded beyond mere religious observance into comprehensive theological education, requiring pharaohs to master increasingly complex spiritual concepts. Ancient texts demanded interpretation as religious practices evolved across centuries. Pharaohs consulted with high priests daily about matters ranging from cosmic alignment to divine intervention requirements. This religious scholarship consumed hours of study time that competed with administrative duties. The burden of appearing omniscient weighed heavily when pharaohs faced questions they couldn't answer. Royal wisdom was assumed divine, yet human limitations remained. When citizens approached with impossible requests or theological mysteries, pharaohs had to balance theological authority with practical impossibility. Admitting ignorance risked undermining divine status, while false wisdom could lead to catastrophic decisions. Palace security evolved into intricate systems as assassination techniques advanced throughout history. Royal food required multiple tastings, wine needed special preparation, and even royal clothing underwent examination for hidden poisons or curses. Pharaohs lived surrounded by protective measures that simultaneously enhanced safety while emphasizing constant danger. Simple pleasures, like spontaneous meals or unplanned walks, became impossible. Administrative correspondence overwhelmed royal attention as bureaucracy expanded across vast territories. Pharaohs received hundreds of reports daily, covering everything from provincial grain storage to border skirmishes. Reading these documents, deciding responses, and dictating replies consumed significant time. The physical act of reviewing papyrus scrolls strained vision, while content complexity exhausted mental stamina. Economic regulations required constant adjustment as trade networks evolved and new resources emerged. Pharaohs set prices for essential commodities, established currency exchange rates, and managed royal monopolies on valuable goods. These decisions affected millions directly, while influencing international relationships through trade policy. Mathematical calculations necessary for economic management challenged pharaohs without advanced numerical training. Royal marriages produced complex family structures requiring careful diplomatic navigation. Multiple wives from different kingdoms brought varying cultural expectations and political ambitions. Pharaohs balanced competing maternal influences on heir selection while managing jealousy and rivalry among queens. Domestic harmony proved essential for political stability, yet personal relationships remained impossibly complicated. Military technology required continuous adaptation as neighbouring civilizations developed new weapons and tactics. Pharaohs approved innovations in chariot design, siege equipment, and fortification methods. Understanding technical specifications demanded engineering knowledge beyond royal education. Staying militarily competitive consumed resources while requiring pharaohs to grasp concepts far removed from traditional royal training. Judicial responsibilities extended into interpreting divine law when earthly precedent proved insufficient. Pharaohs served as final appellate authority for complex legal disputes involving religious violations or unprecedented criminal acts. These cases required balancing theological orthodoxy with practical justice while considering political implications. Wrong interpretations could establish damaging precedents affecting Egyptian society for generations. International espionage networks demanded personal oversight as information gathering became increasingly sophisticated. Pharaohs coordinated merchant spies, diplomatic informants, and professional agents infiltrating foreign courts. Processing intelligence reports required analytical skills, distinguishing reliable information from deliberate misinformation. National security depended on royal ability to interpret complex international intelligence accurately. Cultural refinement expectations increased as pharaohs were expected to demonstrate sophisticated taste in music, poetry, and visual arts. They hosted elaborate entertainments showcasing Egyptian cultural superiority while evaluating artistic merit personally. Pharaohs without natural aesthetic sensibility still had to make informed decisions about art patronage affecting cultural development across centuries. Religious festival calendars became increasingly complex as new deities gained prominence and celebrations expanded. Pharaohs participated in dozens of annual ceremonies requiring specific knowledge, costumes, and ritual performances. Missing festivals or performing incorrectly risked divine displeasure, potentially manifesting through natural disasters. Calendar management alone demanded dedicated advisors, while royal participation remained personally demanded. Foreign policy required understanding neighbouring civilizations, complex political systems, religious beliefs, and economic needs. Pharaohs negotiated with kingdoms using completely different governance structures while respecting cultural differences. Diplomatic correspondence demanded multilingual capability or absolute trust in translators whose mistakes could trigger international incidents. Understanding foreign perspectives proved essential, yet incredibly challenging. Medical diagnosis presented unusual challenges when the patient was considered divine. Pharaohs suffered various ailments, but couldn't display weakness publicly. Court physicians performed treatments secretly while maintaining official narratives about royal health. This medical theatre complicated actual health care, while adding deception stress to illness burden. Many pharaohs endured painful conditions in silence. Palace renovation projects required architectural understanding, as aging structures needed constant maintenance. Pharaohs approved designs, supervised construction, and ensured renovations met royal dignity standards. Building failures reflected poorly on royal competence, while successful projects enhanced prestige. Balancing maintenance costs against new construction competed for limited royal attention and resources. Royal education systems evolved, requiring pharaohs to oversee curriculum development for future administrators. They established schools, appointed teachers, and ensured educational quality met kingdom needs. This forward-thinking approach demanded understanding pedagogical principles beyond personal experience. Educational investment represented legacy building, extending decades beyond individual reigns. Military expedition logistics involved coordinating massive supply chains across difficult terrain. Pharaohs approved provisioning plans, transportation methods, and backup contingencies, supporting thousands of soldiers. Desert warfare required different preparations than Nile Valley campaigns. Logistical failures could doom military operations regardless of tactical brilliance, making supply management crucial royal responsibility. Religious orthodoxy maintenance balanced tradition with necessary adaptation as social conditions changed. Pharaohs resolved theological disputes between different priests while ensuring religious evolution didn't threaten established order. Conservative factions resisted change, while progressives pushed innovation. Finding middle ground required diplomatic skills, typically associated with international relations rather than domestic religious management. Personal relationships suffered under constant scrutiny, as even family interactions carried political implications. Children were raised for state service rather than parental bonding. Spouses competed for royal attention and succession influence. Friendship with pharaohs meant accepting subordinate status while providing emotional support. Genuine human connection became nearly impossible within royal constraints. Economic crisis response demanded quick decision-making during emergencies like famine, flood, or trade disruption. Pharaohs mobilized reserves, redirected resources, and implemented emergency measures, maintaining social stability. These situations tested royal competence dramatically, as immediate action prevented suffering or social unrest. Crisis management often determined historical evaluation of individual pharaohs' effectiveness. Royal hunting expeditions served both recreational and symbolic purposes, requiring careful orchestration. Pharaohs demonstrated strength through successful hunts, while reinforcing divine connection with natural forces. Organising these expeditions involved extensive planning, security arrangements, and ensuring appropriate outcomes. Hunting injuries risked embarrassing royal authority, while unsuccessful expeditions damaged prestige. Diplomatic protocol evolved, increasingly elaborate requirements for receiving foreign dignitaries. Pharaohs had to understand proper etiquette for various cultures while maintaining Egyptian superiority. Gift exchange required appropriate generosity without appearing weak. Protocol mistakes could offend allies or enemies, disrupting carefully balanced international relationships. Diplomatic expertise became essential royal skill. Administrative reform implementation faced resistance from entrenched bureaucracies benefiting from existing inefficiencies. Pharaohs attempting improvements confronted opposition from officials, priests and nobles threatened by changes. Successful reforms required political maneuvering, compromise, and often years of persistent effort. Many innovative pharaohs saw their administrative visions diluted through bureaucratic resistance. Royal libraries demanded personal attention as pharaohs supervised collection expansion, document preservation, and scholarly access. Ancient papyri required special storage conditions, while new acquisitions needed evaluation. Pharaohs consulted frequently with librarians about historical documents affecting current policy. Knowledge preservation became crucial royal duty affecting civilization's intellectual continuity. Military morale management involved understanding soldiers' practical needs beyond strategic considerations. Pharaohs approved pay scales, veteran benefits, and campaign rewards, ensuring army loyalty. Visiting troops during campaigns, recognizing heroism, and addressing grievances required personal involvement despite other obligations. Military effectiveness depended partially on soldiers believing their pharaoh understood their sacrifices. Religious pilgrimage leadership demanded pharaohs participate personally in sacred journeys despite logistical complications. These expeditions involved travelling across difficult terrain, visiting holy sites while maintaining religious dignity. Pilgrimages reinforced pharaonic piety, but consumed weeks away from palace duties. Security arrangements, supply considerations, and ceremony preparations created enormous organizational burdens. Financial auditing systems required pharaohs to review complicated accounting records spanning multiple provinces. Royal inspectors reported treasury balances, tax collections, and expenditure details requiring mathematical comprehension. Fraud detection demanded understanding numerical discrepancies within extensive bureaucratic records. Financial oversight proved time-consuming, yet essential for preventing economic mismanagement. Cultural exchange programs managed by pharaohs facilitated sharing Egyptian innovations while adopting useful foreign practices. Royal approval was needed for foreign artisans, scholars, or technologies entering Egypt. These programs enhanced civilization while risking unwanted foreign influence. Balancing cultural openness with Egyptian identity preservation challenged pharaohs throughout different dynasties. Royal testament preparation occupied increasing attention as pharaohs aged, determining wealth distribution, succession arrangements, and funerary provisions. These legal documents affected kingdom stability for decades beyond individual reigns. Testament preparation required understanding legal complexities while making emotional decisions about family, advisors, and national direction. Legacy planning consumed valuable time while approaching death. International marriage negotiations intensified during wartime or diplomatic crisis, when alliances required strengthening through matrimonial bonds. Pharaohs arranged marriages under pressure, balancing political necessity against family concerns. war brides brought different challenges than peacetime diplomatic marriages. These arrangements often involved complex dowry negotiations and cultural accommodation, requiring extensive diplomatic preparation. Palace entertainment standards demanded sophisticated understanding of music, dance, poetry, and theatrical performance. Pharaohs hosted elaborate events showcasing artistic talent while demonstrating cultural refinement. Evaluating performers, selecting programs, and ensuring appropriate entertainment challenged pharaohs without artistic backgrounds. Cultural events served political purposes, requiring careful choreography beyond mere amusement. Military technology development required pharaohs to understand emerging weapons design, metallurgy advances, and tactical innovations. Approving new military equipment involved technical assessments beyond traditional royal education. Staying ahead of foreign military developments demanded international intelligence and domestic innovation support. Technological superiority often determined military success, but required specialized knowledge. Royal burial customs evolved, requiring pharaohs to approve modifications reflecting changing religious understanding or practical necessity. Tomb architecture, mummification procedures, and burial goods needed updating while maintaining traditional significance. These innovations demanded theological knowledge, balanced with practical considerations. Funeral preparation represented ultimate royal project continuing decades after death. Administrative efficiency improvement motivated pharaohs to implement record-keeping reforms despite bureaucratic tradition. Better documentation enabled improved governance, but required system-wide adoption. Scribal resistance to new methods complicated implementation, requiring royal pressure for acceptance. Successfully modernizing administration benefited future reigns while demanding enormous contemporary efforts. Religious calendar coordination became complex as different regions adopted variations conflicting with central authority. Pharaohs resolved disputes about festival timing, religious observance scheduling, and theological interpretation differences. These religious administrative duties required diplomatic skills, preventing regional alienation while maintaining orthodoxy. Calendar management affected agricultural cycles and trade rhythms throughout Egypt. Economic development planning extended beyond immediate resource allocation into long-term prosperity strategies. Pharaohs commissioned infrastructure projects, promoted technological innovation, and encouraged trade expansion. These investments might benefit future generations more than contemporary subjects. Balancing immediate needs against future development required vision, often lacking in rulers focused on dynastic survival. Family succession disputes intensified during royal illness as various factions maneuvered for advantage. Pharaohs managed competing ambitions among children, wives, and relatives while maintaining kingdom stability. Designating successors early risked empowering potential rivals. Delaying decisions created uncertainty, threatening political order. Succession management required extraordinary diplomatic finesse. Cultural preservation initiatives included commissioning historical records, supporting traditional crafts, and maintaining architectural heritage. Pharaohs ensured Egyptian identity survived despite foreign influences and internal changes. These preservation efforts represented royal obligation extending beyond personal reign. Culture stewardship demanded understanding traditional values while adapting to contemporary needs. Military strategic planning required understanding geopolitical complexities beyond immediate territorial concerns. Pharaohs developed responses for multiple contingencies involving various neighbouring powers. Long-term strategic thinking involved economic considerations, diplomatic relationships, and technological developments. Strategic planning consumed extensive mental energy while requiring constant revision based on changing circumstances. International reputation management demanded pharaohs consider Egyptian prestige throughout the known world. Foreign perceptions influenced trade relationships, military deterrence, and diplomatic leverage. Maintaining royal dignity abroad while projecting appropriate power required understanding international psychology. Reputation damage could affect Egypt's standing for generations beyond individual pharaohs. Personal health maintenance became crucial political necessity as royal incapacity threatened kingdom stability. Pharaohs adopted dietary regimens, exercise routines, and medical treatments, preserving physical capability. Public appearances required healthy appearance despite private suffering. Health management represented survival necessity beyond personal comfort, as weakness invited challenge. Royal workshop supervision involved understanding production techniques for items essential to state function. Pharaohs approved designs for ceremonial objects, royal furniture, and sacred implements. Quality control demanded technical knowledge beyond traditional royal education. Workshop management connected pharaohs directly with economic production, affecting thousands of specialized craftsmen. Religious education reform addressed theological understanding appropriate for changing society while maintaining traditional wisdom. Pharaohs established standards for priestly training, approved religious curricula, and ensured theological consistency. These educational reforms affected religious practice for centuries. Balancing innovation with tradition required understanding complex theological principles. Military veteran care recognized soldiers' sacrifice through pensions, land grants, and honorary positions. Pharaohs established systems supporting former warriors, ensuring continued loyalty. Veteran programs represented significant economic commitment while enhancing military recruitment. Successful implementation required understanding both martial culture and administrative capability. Economic taxation policy required understanding regional prosperity variations, avoiding excessive burden while maintaining revenue. Pharaohs adjusted rates based on harvest success, trade performance, and local conditions. Tax administration demanded mathematical sophistication and political sensitivity. Poor taxation decisions could trigger rebellion, while insufficient revenue weakened state capacity. Diplomatic correspondence management involved processing communications from numerous foreign powers requiring appropriate responses. Pharaohs reviewed proposals, drafts replies, and ensured proper protocol observance. International communication consumed considerable time while demanding linguistic precision and cultural awareness. Diplomatic mistakes could escalate into military conflicts. Religious festival innovation balanced tradition with contemporary relevance, maintaining popular engagement with state religion. Pharaohs approved ceremonial modifications, new ritual elements, and updated theological emphasis. Innovation required theological justification while preserving essential traditional elements. Festival development influenced religious devotion throughout Egyptian society. Royal portraiture standards determined how pharaohs would be depicted for posterity, affecting historical memory. Artistic conventions required approval, balancing divine representation with human recognizability. Portrait guidelines influenced sculptors, painters, and relief artists throughout the kingdom. Visual legacy creation represented attempt at controlling posthumous reputation through artistic propaganda. Military alliance management required understanding various foreign military traditions, capabilities, and reliability. Pharaohs negotiated joint operations, shared intelligence, and coordinated strategy with allied powers. Alliance effectiveness depended on trust building and mutual benefit recognition. International military cooperation demanded diplomatic skills beyond traditional conquest-oriented thinking. Cultural patronage extended beyond traditional arts into supporting emerging creative expressions reflecting contemporary life. Pharaohs encouraged innovation while ensuring artistic output reinforced royal authority. New artistic movements required evaluation based on aesthetic merit and political appropriateness. Cultural leadership influenced Egyptian identity across successive generations. Administrative justice delivery required pharaohs to ensure fair treatment throughout bureaucratic hierarchies. Officials' decisions could be appealed to royal authority, demanding personal review. Bureaucratic abuse of power threatened social order, requiring royal intervention. Justice administration balanced individual cases with systemic administrative reform needs. Foreign trade negotiation involved understanding international markets, currency fluctuations, and commodity values. Pharaohs approved commercial treaties, established trading standards, and resolved commercial disputes. Economic diplomacy represented sophisticated foreign policy tool requiring business acumen. Trade success enhanced kingdom prosperity while building international relationships. Religious architectural supervision ensured temple construction met divine requirements while serving practical needs. Pharaohs approved designs, supervised building, and performed dedication ceremonies. Sacred architecture required understanding theological symbolism and engineering principles. Building failures reflected poorly on royal divine connection, threatening legitimacy. Royal marriage counselling became necessary as pharaohs mediated disputes between wives competing for attention and succession influence. Family harmony affected political stability, requiring personal involvement in domestic disputes. Managing multiple marriages demanded psychological insight, uncommon among rulers trained primarily for war and administration. Household peace proved surprisingly challenging. Economic regulatory frameworks required establishing rules governing commerce, property rights, and contractual obligations. Pharaohs created legal precedents affecting business conduct for generations. Commercial law demanded understanding various economic activities beyond agricultural taxation. Regulatory success influenced Egypt's prosperity and social order. Military recruitment standards involved balancing army quality with economic needs, as soldiers were simultaneously agricultural workers. Pharaohs established service requirements considering demographic constraints and security necessities. Recruitment policy affected both military effectiveness and civilian economic productivity. Finding appropriate balance challenged even experienced rulers. International ceremonial obligation required pharaohs to observe proper diplomatic etiquette when receiving foreign dignitaries or conducting official correspondence. Protocol mistakes could offend allies, creating diplomatic incidents. Cultural awareness became essential royal skill as Egypt interacted with increasingly diverse civilizations. Ceremonial expertise prevented misunderstandings while projecting appropriate royal dignity. Educational curriculum development recognized changing administrative needs, requiring updated training for royal officials. Pharaohs approved course content, appointed instructors, and ensured educational quality. School system effectiveness determined bureaucratic competence, affecting kingdom administration. Educational policy represented long-term investment in governmental efficiency. Religious pilgrimage route management involved maintaining sacred paths, protecting travelers, and ensuring proper facilities along important religious journeys. Pharaohs supervised infrastructure, supporting religious tourism while coordinating security arrangements. Pilgrimage logistics required understanding geographic challenges and religious requirements simultaneously. Sacred travel facilitated religious devotion while presenting administrative complexities. Gradually, as the centuries rolled forward, the pharaoh's role expanded beyond administrative duties into becoming patron of scientific discovery. Royal observatories tracked celestial movements, affecting agricultural cycles and religious ceremonies. Pharaohs consulted with astronomers regarding calendar accuracy, while ensuring predictions aligned with religious expectations. Mathematics required for astronomical calculations challenged rulers educated primarily in military and religious matters. Urban planning demanded pharaohs understand city development principles as major centers grew beyond original boundaries. Population expansion required coordinated housing development, waste management systems, and water distribution networks. Pharaohs approved city layouts while balancing religious site requirements with commercial needs. Urban administration represented unexpected royal responsibility emerging from Egypt's growing prosperity. International intelligence analysis required synthesizing information from multiple sources into coherent foreign policy strategies. Pharaohs reviewed reports from merchants, diplomats, and spies stationed throughout neighboring kingdoms. Processing contradictory information demanded analytical skills rarely emphasized in royal education. Intelligence mistakes could result in military disasters or diplomatic failures affecting generations. Religious artifact authentication emerged as necessary skill when ancient relics required royal verification. Pharaohs determined authenticity of sacred objects claimed to possess divine power or historical significance. These decisions affected religious practices and could influence public faith significantly. Archaeological expertise wasn't traditionally included in pharaonic training, yet became increasingly important. Economic infrastructure development required approving major construction projects linking distant regions through roads, canals, and harbour facilities. Pharaohs coordinated engineering resources across multiple provinces while balancing costs against anticipated benefits. Infrastructure planning demanded understanding technical specifications and long-term economic impact. Successful projects enhanced prosperity, while failed initiatives wasted enormous resources. Military exercise coordination involved planning large-scale training operations, ensuring army readiness without disrupting agricultural cycles. Pharaohs scheduled war games, approved tactical drills, and evaluated combat effectiveness. Training logistics required understanding military capabilities, while considering economic limitations. Peacetime preparation determined wartime success but consumed resources needed elsewhere. Cultural exchange oversight regulated foreign influences entering Egypt through trade, diplomatic missions, and scholarly exchanges. Pharaohs balanced cosmopolitan engagement with cultural preservation concerns. Selective adoption of foreign innovations required discernment, distinguishing beneficial practices from potentially harmful influences. Cultural gatekeeping proved politically sensitive, yet necessary for maintaining Egyptian identity. Royal arbitration extended into complex commercial disputes involving international trade agreements and contractual obligations. Pharaohs resolved conflicts between merchants, settled property rights disagreements, and enforced payment obligations. Business law demanded understanding economic principles beyond agricultural taxation experience. Commercial justice affected Egypt's trading reputation internationally. Atmospheric phenomenon interpretation fell under royal purview as pharaohs explained unusual weather events affecting agricultural prosperity. Eclipse predictions, comet appearances, and unseasonable climate required both scientific understanding and religious explanation. Public interpretation of natural events influenced social stability during agricultural uncertainties. Weather explanation balanced empirical observation with theological orthodoxy. Administrative legacy documentation motivated pharaohs to record governmental innovations, legal precedents, and policy developments for future rulers. These historical records preserved institutional knowledge across dynastic transitions. Documentation required literary skills and historical consciousness beyond typical royal capabilities. Successful record-keeping influenced administrative continuity for centuries. International maritime policy development addressed increasing naval commerce and military requirements along Egypt's extensive coastlines. Pharaohs established harbour regulations, shipping standards, and naval defence strategies. Maritime administration demanded understanding seafaring principles rarely emphasised in desert-focused royal training. Coastal governance represented emerging challenge as Egypt's international engagement expanded. Religious music composition supervision ensured sacred songs met theological requirements while maintaining aesthetic quality. Pharaohs approved musical innovations for temple ceremonies, royal occasions, and public festivals. Musical literacy wasn't traditional pharaonic skill, yet sacred music significantly influenced religious experience. Composition approval connected rulers directly with popular devotional practices. Economic monetary standardization required pharaohs to establish consistent weight measurements, currency values, and exchange rates throughout diverse regions. Monetary policy affected daily commercial transactions while influencing international trade relationships. Financial standardization demanded mathematical precision and economic understanding beyond agricultural taxation experience. Currency management represented sophisticated governance challenge. Military technology, transfer regulation, controlled weapons, knowledge movement between Egypt and neighbouring civilizations. Pharaohs determined which innovations could be exported while ensuring strategic advantages remained domestic. Technology policy balanced commercial benefits against security concerns. Weapons control required understanding both military applications and international competitive dynamics. Cultural preservation grants supported traditional crafts, historical documentation, and linguistic maintenance as foreign influence increased. Pharaohs allocated resources, preserving Egyptian heritage against assimilation pressures. Cultural funding represented investment in national identity beyond immediate political benefits. Preservation initiatives ensured civilization continuity across turbulent historical periods. Religious calendar synchronization coordinated different regional variations into consistent national observance system. Pharaohs resolved timing disputes between provinces while maintaining theological accuracy. Calendar management affected agricultural planning, commercial scheduling, and social coordination. Temporal standardization required astronomical precision combined with political sensitivity. International hostage exchange diplomacy involved negotiating prisoner releases, political exiles, and royal family members detained abroad. Pharaohs conducted sensitive negotiations, balancing humanitarian concerns with strategic advantages. Hostage diplomacy required psychological insight and political calculation. Successful exchanges enhanced Egyptian prestige, while failed negotiations could escalate conflicts. Economic resource allocation optimization demanded pharaohs balance competing demands from military, religious, construction, and civilian sectors. Limited resources required prioritization, decisions affecting millions of subjects. Resource distribution influenced social stability while determining kingdoms' long-term development trajectory. Allocation choices reflected royal values and governance priorities directly. Royal medical research patronage supported physician training, herbal medicine development, and surgical technique advancement. Pharaohs funded medical innovation while maintaining religious healing traditions. Healthcare improvement represented humanitarian investment, potentially benefiting all social classes. Medical patronage balanced empirical progress with theological orthodoxy requirements. Military strategic writing required pharaohs to document tactical innovations, campaign experiences, and organizational improvements for future commanders. Military literature preserved institutional knowledge across leadership transitions. Strategic documentation demanded understanding warfare principles well enough to communicate effectively. Military writing influenced tactical development beyond individual reigns. International environmental coordination addressed shared resource management with neighbouring kingdoms regarding Nile water distribution and desert border definitions. Pharaohs negotiated environmental agreements affecting agricultural prosperity. Resource diplomacy prevented conflicts while ensuring Egyptian interests remained prioritized. Environmental management represented emerging international relations challenge. Religious architectural symbolism interpretation required pharaohs to understand complex theological meanings embedded in temple designs and ceremonial objects. Sacred architecture communicated divine concepts through geometric relationships and astronomical alignments. Symbolic literacy ensured royal approval aligned with theological requirements. Architectural interpretation connected pharaohs with spiritual wisdom preserved through building traditions. Cultural censorship decisions determined which artistic expressions could appear publicly while balancing creativity against political stability. Pharaohs approved theatrical performances, literary works, and visual arts, ensuring content supported royal authority. Censorship required aesthetic judgment combined with political awareness. Cultural control influenced intellectual development while maintaining social order. Economic agricultural innovation encouraged farming technique improvements, crop diversification, and irrigation efficiency enhancements. Pharaohs supported experimental agriculture, while ensuring food security remained paramount. Agricultural development represented foundational economic activity requiring royal attention. Innovation support balanced tradition with necessary adaptation. International refugee policy management addressed population movements resulting from wars, famines, and political upheavals in neighbouring regions. Pharaohs determined asylum criteria while considering economic impacts and security concerns. Refugee administration required humanitarian sensitivity balanced with practical limitations. Immigration decisions affected Egypt's demographic composition and international relationships. Religious education standardization established consistent theological training across different temple schools throughout Egypt. Pharaohs approved religious curricula, ensuring orthodox instruction while allowing regional variations. Educational standardization influenced religious unity across diverse populations. Theological education policy shaped future priesthood quality and religious practice evolution. Military historical documentation preserved campaign records, tactical lessons, and equipment specifications for future strategic reference. Pharaohs commissioned military histories, combining factual accuracy with propaganda purposes. Historical documentation influenced both administrative continuity and public perception. Military histories reinforced royal military competence while educating future commanders. Economic fair trade regulation established commercial standards, preventing merchant exploitation while encouraging healthy competition. Pharaohs monitored marketplace practices, ensuring honest transactions and fair pricing. Trade regulation required understanding commercial psychology and market dynamics. Fair commerce supported social stability while promoting economic growth. International diplomatic wedding custom adaptation modified traditional Egyptian marriage ceremonies when marrying foreign princesses. Pharaohs balanced cultural accommodation with Egyptian supremacy requirements. Ceremonial innovation required theological approval while respecting foreign traditions diplomatically. Wedding protocol affected international relations while establishing precedents for future alliances. Royal Justice Expedition leadership involved personally investigating serious crimes or administrative corruption in distant provinces. Pharaohs travelled extensively, ensuring local justice aligned with central authority. Investigation tours demonstrated royal commitment to fair governance, despite significant time investment. Justice missions reinforced pharaonic authority while addressing genuine grievances. Cultural language preservation supported Egyptian linguistic traditions against foreign vocabulary adoption threatening linguistic purity. Pharaohs promoted traditional language use in official communications while managing inevitable linguistic evolution. Language policy influenced national identity preservation across multicultural trade interactions. Linguistic conservatism balanced practical communication needs with cultural identity. Economic taxation reform. Experimentation tested new revenue collection methods, balancing efficiency improvements with traditional practices. Pharaohs authorized pilot programs evaluating system modifications before kingdom-wide implementation. Tax experimentation required political courage while promising potential benefits. Reform testing allowed gradual improvement without destabilizing established systems. Religious ritual modification adaptation updated ancient ceremonies reflecting contemporary needs, while maintaining essential spiritual significance. Pharaohs approved careful changes, ensuring religious practices remained relevant without compromising theological integrity. Ritual evolution required balancing tradition with practical necessities. Ceremonial adaptation preserved religious engagement across changing social contexts. International maritime boundary negotiations addressed increasing naval activity along Egypt's extensive coastlines with neighbouring powers. Pharaohs established territorial waters, fishing rights, and shipping lanes through diplomatic agreements. Maritime boundaries influenced commercial access while ensuring naval security. Coastal diplomacy represented expanding governance responsibilities beyond traditional land-based concerns. Administrative efficiency auditing involved pharaohs reviewing bureaucratic performance across all governmental departments regularly. Royal inspectors reported inefficiencies, corruption, and innovation opportunities requiring executive attention. Efficiency evaluation demanded understanding organizational psychology beyond traditional military command experience. Administrative oversight ensured governmental functionality throughout changing circumstances. Cultural historical accuracy verification required pharaohs to authenticate traditional narratives as written records replaced oral histories. Royal historians preserved accurate accounts, preventing mythological distortion of recent events. Historical verification influenced how pharaohs understood their own legacy within Egyptian continuity. Accurate documentation shaped future understanding of contemporary decisions. Economic agricultural biotechnology supported selective breeding programs, improving crop yields and livestock quality throughout rural Egypt. Pharaohs allocated resources for agricultural research, advancing food security beyond traditional farming methods. Biotechnology investment represented long-term thinking about population sustainability. Scientific agriculture reduced famine risks while increasing prosperity. Military psychological warfare development recognized that morale factors often determined battle outcomes more than numerical superiority. Pharaohs approved propaganda strategies, victory celebrations, and enemy demoralization tactics. Psychological tactics required understanding human motivation, rarely emphasized in traditional military training. Morale warfare influenced conflict resolution beyond direct combat effectiveness. International piracy suppression coordination required pharaohs to cooperate with foreign powers protecting shared trade routes. Naval cooperation prevented economic losses while maintaining Egyptian sovereignty over territorial waters. Anti-piracy efforts balanced military costs against commercial benefits. Maritime security represented collaborative governance challenge requiring diplomatic consensus. Religious theological debates moderation addressed doctrinal disputes threatening religious unity as different interpretations emerged. Pharaohs mediated between competing theological schools, ensuring orthodox consensus prevailed. Theological mediation required understanding complex religious arguments beyond ceremonial participation. Doctrinal unity maintained social cohesion through shared beliefs. Economic market regulation enforcement required pharaohs to ensure commercial laws were implemented fairly across diverse economic activities. Royal inspectors monitored marketplace compliance with price controls, quality standards, and fair competition rules. Market enforcement balanced business freedom with consumer protection. Commercial regulation influenced economic trust essential for prosperity. Cultural artwork conservation initiated systematic preservation efforts, protecting ancient masterpieces from environmental damage and human neglect. Pharaohs allocated resources, maintaining artistic heritage for future generations beyond immediate aesthetic enjoyment. Conservation programs represented cultural stewardship, extending beyond contemporary political concerns. Artistic preservation influenced civilization continuity through material culture. International scientific exchange facilitated knowledge sharing with foreign scholars, advancing Egyptian understanding across multiple disciplines. Pharaohs approved intellectual exchanges, ensuring beneficial innovations entered Egypt while controlling potentially destabilizing ideas. Scientific diplomacy expanded Egyptian capabilities through international collaboration. Knowledge exchange balanced openness with cultural protection. Administrative succession training intensified as pharaohs aged, requiring comprehensive preparation for designated heirs assuming future responsibilities. Royal education programs ensured smooth transitions while addressing specific challenges anticipated during upcoming reigns. Succession training demanded understanding both traditional requirements and emerging governance needs. Leadership preparation influenced dynastic stability across generational changes. Military veteran integration supported former soldiers transitioning into civilian economy through job training and business opportunities. Pharaohs recognized military service deserved continued support beyond active duty benefits. Veteran programs enhanced social stability while demonstrating royal appreciation for warrior sacrifice. Reintegration assistance maintained military morale through visible post-service benefits. Cultural youth education expansion recognized younger generations needed preparation for increasingly complex society facing rapid changes. Pharaohs established educational programs addressing contemporary challenges while preserving traditional wisdom. Educational reform balanced innovation with cultural continuity requirements. Youth preparation influenced long-term societal adaptation success. Economic disaster recovery. Planning developed systematic responses for natural catastrophes threatening agricultural production and commercial stability. Pharaohs established emergency reserves, evacuation procedures, and reconstruction protocols, minimizing crisis impact. Disaster preparation required foresight, extending beyond immediate circumstances. Recovery planning enhanced resilience against unpredictable challenges. Religious pilgrimage site development improved facilities accommodating increasing numbers of devotees visiting sacred locations throughout Egypt. Pharaohs approved infrastructure, supporting religious tourism while maintaining spiritual authenticity. Pilgrimage enhancement balanced commercial benefits with religious significance. Sacred site development influenced popular devotion across different regions. International communication technology advancement supported improved message transmission between Egypt and distant allies or trade partners. Pharaohs encouraged courier system improvements, signal methods, and diplomatic protocol efficiency. Communication innovation enhanced governance effectiveness across expanding territories. Information technology represented crucial infrastructure supporting complex administration. Final historical retrospection occupied pharaohs approaching death as they evaluated achievements, addressed failures, and contemplated lasting legacies. Self-assessment required honest evaluation beyond public propaganda, while considering how history might judge their decisions. Retrospective analysis influenced final policy initiatives, attempting to complete unfinished goals. Historical consciousness shaped pharaohs' ultimate priorities. Cultural ritual preservation ceremonies commemorated traditional practices threatened by social changes, requiring royal protection, guaranteeing continuity. Pharaohs sponsored documentation projects, recording endangered customs through permanent records. Preservation ceremonies demonstrated commitment to cultural heritage beyond practical governance. Ritual documentation influenced religious practice preservation across changing times. Economic prosperity celebration rituals acknowledged successful reigns through elaborate festivities, sharing royal achievements with general population. Pharaohs organized jubilee celebrations demonstrating Egyptian prosperity while reinforcing social cohesion through shared celebration. Prosperity rituals connected rulers with subjects through mutual recognition of collective success. Jubilee traditions influenced how pharaohs understood their relationship with Egyptian society. As our journey through pharaonic burdens comes to a close, I hope this exploration has helped ease your mind and guide you toward peaceful sleep. History's gentle rhythms continue to flow, just as they have for countless generations before us. The divine rulers of ancient Egypt carried weights far heavier than their golden crown suggest, navigating impossible decisions between human nature and godly expectations. Their burden-shaped civilizations yet rarely brought personal satisfaction. These forgotten struggles echo across millennia, reminding us that absolute power often meant absolute exhaustion. Royal life consumed individuals completely, transforming human beings into living symbols of divine authority while demanding superhuman endurance. Pharaohs sacrificed personal desires for ceremonial obligations, traded authentic relationships for political necessities, and spent lifetimes maintaining facades that never permitted vulnerability. Their golden palaces became beautiful prisons where even sleep offered no escape from endless responsibilities. If this boring historical narrative has helped you find rest tonight, remember that your like and subscription directly support our mission to create more of these sleep-inducing histories. Your engagement helps other insomniacs discover these narratives too. What historical period would you like us to explore next? Leave your suggestions in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on this historical journey. Until next time, good night and pleasant dreams.